I'd also like to introduce from Riverside County, the Assistant Agricultural Commissioner, Ron Bray. Ron, where are you? There's Ron way in the back, blue shirt, standing and waving. And we're also fortunate to have the California State Veterinarian with us tonight. Dr. Ed Jones is over here. Good evening, Dr. Jones. Again, we'll have a few slides presented by two veterinarians working on the project tonight. We ask that you hold your questions until the presentation is complete. Won't be very long, maybe 10, a few more than 10 slides. I know PowerPoints can be drudgery, but we worked very hard to make this comprehensive yet quick. So we hope we succeed on that point. And then when we're finished, we'll invite questioners to the microphone here at the front center of the room and ask that you queue up to ask your questions. One question will be permitted and then a follow-up, and then if you have an additional question, you're invited to get back into the queue and submit the question again. The meeting is scheduled for 90 minutes. I don't know if that's a hard time cap, but we're certainly willing to spend the time that we need to spend answering your questions and providing whatever understanding we can provide about this incident, the disease, and our response to it. And with that, I'd like to introduce our presenters, Dr. Robin Corcoran from the USDA and Dr. Ricardo Gaitan from the California Department of Food and Agriculture. Doctors?
I want to thank you guys so much for bundling up and coming out tonight. I'm from Minnesota. You would think I could handle this cold with flying colors, but I'm just as miserable as the weather turn of events as you guys are. So thank you so much. This is a really important conversation that we really need to have. And it's so important that we get this information out to make sure that we're giving you the most accurate information and then being able to answer all of your questions. So what we'll do is we're going to give you a little bit of an overview of the incident, how this response started, where we are, really the implications, especially to your community and to the poultry industry in California as a whole. Hold this a little bit here. All right. Okay. Are there, I don't know, well, if they can't speak English, can you guys?
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question in Spanish. ¿Hay alguien aquí que necesite traducción en español, que no entienda inglés? Levante la mano, por favor. Okay, so then the presentation is going to be 100% in English. Thank you.
Like I said, my name is Robin Corcoran. I'm a veterinarian with the USDA. And this incident is it's a joint response between the CDFA and the USDA, and we're really kind of working together to help manage this. Things started, I'm gonna go back here. So basically this incident started back in May of 2018 when we had our first positive case. Since then, some of the most recent numbers that we've released, we've had 330 confirmed positive premises. For the first 6 months, it was confined to backyard exhibition type birds. Then in December of this past year, we had our first commercial positive premises. At this point in time, there are 5 industry premises. 4 of them are larger type commercial ones. One of them is a smaller 45,000 bird operation. Those have been confirmed positive at this point in time. So what is virulent Newcastle disease? It's a highly fatal virus of various species of birds. This particular strain that we have right now is it has a real affinity for chickens, and it's really what we kind of call hot virus. It really doesn't take much virus in order to infect these birds, and the chickens in particular are very susceptible. But there are other species of birds that are susceptible to this disease as well. All of the other birds that we really kind of have in the poultry species, we include turkeys with that, pigeons, quail, doves. Pet birds are not quite as susceptible, but if they're really challenged with the virus, it is possible for those birds to become positive too. We have had some cases of that. There's no treatment for this virus, and it is almost 100% fatal. For the few birds that, if we're not getting to them and they go through the course of the disease and they survive, they don't typically do very well. And what's very problematic is these birds will continue to manufacture and shed this virus for about 6 months or so after they recover. The challenge we have with vaccines, I think a lot of people know that there are vaccines out there. The problem with the vaccine are twofold. The vaccine is not very effective. And it really kind of, how effective it is really kind of depends on a lot of different factors. But we do know that a large number of these birds, that when they're vaccinated, they are still going to come down with the disease. They're still going to get sick. They're still going to die. Those birds that don't get sick, though, what the vaccine doesn't do is it doesn't prevent them from continuing to replicate the virus if they are exposed to it. And so, like birds that would recover from the disease, they will go on shedding virus in the environment for months at a time. And these birds can look perfectly healthy. So you vaccinate them, you think that they're okay and they're protected, and what you don't know is that if there's any reason you need to move the birds around, or if you're coming in contact with a virus on your property, even if your bird isn't moving around, you then can transmit that virus around, and you don't know that it's happening. And that's really one of the big challenges that we're seeing with that vaccine. We're seeing an increasing number of these positive bacterial flocks in increasing locations. There was a little bit of a lull in these positives that were popping up around November, but unfortunately over the last couple of months we've seen a real increase throughout Riverside and San Bernardino County. And again, like I said, the VDP was recently confirmed in some industry flocks as of December. This isn't considered a human health threat. With that said, for people who do have close contact with positive birds, you can develop, you can be infected and develop a real limiting kind of an illness. Usually how it presents is through pink eye, conjunctivitis. But for the most part, it's not considered a real significant human health concern. There is absolutely no concern with eating the meat from a bird that had Newcastle disease. As long as it's properly cooked, and saying that is because you have a much more, a great risk of getting salmonella or some other disease if you're eating the poultry. But it isn't a human health concern as far as consuming. This is a map, we call it, it's like a heat map. And really what it is it's a map that shows you the intensity of the number of positives. I think this map has been for the last month, so it's December 27th to January 27th. So it gives you an idea where some of these new cases have popped up, and the map, depending on the coloring, shows you the intensity, how many of these cases have popped up in a smaller period, or a smaller area. As you can see, Riverside County seems to really be a hot spot, really around the Paris area, but also we've seen cases around this area too, as you know. And in the Norco area, we do have a positive, and we have one section that we call highly infected area, and I'm going to explain that in a couple of slides here real quick. So why is all of this important to you? Why is virulent Newcastle disease a concern for you? Well, one of the main reasons is your loss of companionship, loss of pet birds. It really doesn't matter what you're doing with your birds, whether they're just a couple of chickens that you have in your backyard, all the way up to these commercial producers. There is an emotional investment in this. I have some friends who have pet birds that they have as strong emotional attachment to their birds as they do with their dogs. It's an intense attachment. It doesn't matter that it's a chicken. And so the number one thing is we really need to keep this disease out to protect all of your pets that are out there. And then for those that are breeding birds and showing birds, you can have loss of years of hard work and valuable genetics in your birds as well. If your birds are sick and either we're coming in and in order to manage the disease, we have to euthanize the birds, or even if nature takes its course and you lose the birds, you're losing those valuable genetics. And again, in all cases, it's a significant emotional impact. And in some cases, depending on what the use is for the birds, there's a significant financial impact as well. So the economic impact, especially when it becomes widespread and also in those industry flocks, is you can have loss of jobs and businesses. Especially with the industries, if you have some commercial businesses that go out, there are a lot of supporting businesses in the area that, you know, will be affected, whether it be from feed or those companies that are providing the bedding for the birds. There are a lot of, you know, kind of collateral damage for some of these businesses if they go out. Higher food costs, again, too, if this really becomes entrenched into our commercial industry, it is going to result in higher food costs. And we also, on a larger scale, have an international trade impact. What happens is when we have any kind of a positive in our commercial premises, other countries that we have trade agreements with will shut down their doors to products. So far, they've limited it to those counties where we know that we have positive commercial premises, and we haven't extended it to the state of California or, you know, potentially the entire country. They could do that if they wanted to. But that becomes a problem because as more commercial premises become positive, then that trade ban starts to become a lot wider. And then humane issues, the birds suffering from the disease process. These birds that if we're not coming in and we're helping things along and euthanizing them, it is a really, really tough way for them to go. It is hard to see. And I've talked to people who we've gone in and they've said, you know, I know you guys have been talking about this and I know you talk about the science. And it wasn't until I actually saw it in my birds that I realized how horrible this is. And thank you very much for coming in and stopping the suffering. They're not happy that we're there because they're not happy that their birds have the disease, but they are happy that we're able to end that much quicker than nature would if they had to go through several days of this. So far, right now, about 1 million birds in this particular outbreak have been euthanized. Around 900,000 of those birds have been from the commercial industries, but about 100,000 of those have been from those backyard and exhibition dogs. So how is this virus moving? That's really kind of the big question. Direct contact is one of the main ways. So either the birds are ingesting or they're inhaling other birds' infected fluids, the feces, also aerosolized particles. Birds are kind of, you know, hacking, sneezing, and any of those particles they can inhale, and also contaminated feed and water. But another real big problem that we're seeing as far as how this virus is moving is through contaminated objects. And that includes people having the virus on themselves, on the clothing, moving from one place to another and depositing it when they put their hands down or they touch other surfaces. Vehicles are, you know, vehicles driving into an infected premises, and if it's on tires or if it's on mud or debris that gets onto the vehicle and then moving to another place. Also other animals, whether it be dogs, cats, horses, but we're also talking about, you know, different rodents, and there is some implication too that insects certain times a year can move around too if there's a real heavy insect burden and it's moving from a very highly infected area to another premises close by. So the incubation period can range from about 2 to 15 days. Usually more around, you know, it can be anywhere from about 2 to 6 days, but it can be an extended incubation period, a couple of weeks. The other problem with that is when these birds are infected and they go through this incubation period, they're healthy period. They're not sick yet, but during this period of time, they are producing a virus and they are shedding it into the environment. And one of the biggest problems we have is people, well-meaning, realize that there is an infected premises nearby, there's some infected birds. They want to protect their birds, and so they take them and move them to another location, not knowing that their birds may already be infected and they're shedding this virus in a new location. And then when their birds become sick a few days later, only then do they realize what will happen. So it's this movement that has really been a real bugger in us trying to get a hold of this virus and then kind of keep it contained. So common symptoms, okay, here we go. Fluid from the beak in the upper left, weakness, difficulty breathing, swelling around the eyes and the comb. One of the earliest signs for people who really know their flocks well, even if we've had some people call us where their birds have just been kind of quiet, just sitting there a little bit puffed, not wanting to eat, not showing any outward signs. They've given us a call saying, I don't really feel very good about this. When you come out and test the birds, and by the time we get out there by the end of the day, they're seeing some of these signs and they're getting really sick. So it can happen very quickly. You can also see difficulty walking, twisting of the neck. Down, you can't see it very well, but green diarrhea. So it's the respiratory system, the nervous system, and the gastrointestinal system that will see most of the signs. So disease control strategies. This is the slide that's the hardest to talk about, and that's really why we're here today. Right? The only way that we can stop the spread of this virus and eradicate the disease is to euthanize the birds. That's all we have. We don't have treatment. We don't have an effective vaccine that will work on all birds and stop the shedding. We have to euthanize the birds. We have to take away the host that is allowing the virus to replicate. If we remove the host from the environment, the virus may still be there, but as long as it's not able to replicate, the environmental conditions are going to take care of the virus and it's eventually going to die. But we have to remove that host, and we have to make sure that area is free of a host for a certain period of time. So when we do find a disease in a neighborhood, we have special veterinarians called epidemiologists, and they're specialists in determining disease spread, really kind of understanding where it might have come from and where it might be going next. And they determine the size of an area that they need to put under quarantine. Once the quarantine is in place, for residential flocks, this will include the birds that have the virus, as well as birds that appear healthy, but they're real close to the infected site, and we know that they're most certainly going to come down with the virus in the near future. And we call those areas highly infected areas. How big that area really depends on a lot of different factors that they're looking at, and it has to do with, bird density, how many positives they may have had in the area before then. They're also looking at the proximity of any commercial premises also. And like I said, as of today, nearly 100,000 backyard birds and more than 900,000 industry birds have been euthanized, or in the process in the next coming days of being euthanized. So what we need bird owners to do, the process for you, is if you have any symptomatic birds, to call up the sick line. We have the sick bird hotline. You've got the number coming up here in a couple of slides. If you get it there. So what we do is we come out and we test the birds. If they're positive, those birds, the flocks, all the birds on the premises will be humanely euthanized, and then the owners will receive financial compensation. Now that's not any comfort when you're dealing with birds that you have an emotional attachment to, but that is the process, and owners will receive the financial compensation. All of the poultry that's within the designated highly infected area surrounding the infected birds are also going to be euthanized. And that's because we need to get that area free, again, of the host that can allow that virus to replicate. We will be doing testing on all those birds, and then what we're looking for is to make sure that we don't have sick and infected birds that go all the way up to that edge. Some cases, depending on what happens, depending on what the test results are, and depending on if any new cases pop up real close to the edge but right on the outside, sometimes we need to increase the size of that highly infected area. Then after that happens, we put the property into what's called a fallow period, and that's just a period of time where the property is remaining free of any birds. It is a minimum of 120 days. 120 days, we have determined that as long as we're not bringing any new hosts back onto the environment, that through time and just the natural environment, that virus is going to die. Now the reason I say it's a minimum of 120 days is there are other factors at play around that quarantine premises that might need that quarantine to stay in place further. And that's a real common question we'll get from people where they'll call and they'll say, my property has been quarantined for 120 days, it's done, can I bring birds back? The answer is not always yes, because in some cases, we will put what's called a control zone around these infected areas, and that's basically just an area where we're telling people they can't move their birds. We're not going in and euthanizing their birds, but those birds have to sit still. So until that control area is lifted, people's quarantines can't be lifted. So if you're put under a fallow period for any reason, no matter how many days it is, until you get a letter from the state, Dr. Jones, then you won't be able to move your birds. So you need to keep them still, or you need to keep the property free of birds. So like I said, bird movement remains the #1 challenge hindering our response efforts to stop the virus spread and to eradicate the disease. So these infected birds are serving as virus factories and including during the incubation period with no symptoms. And we're really asking people to avoid moving birds from property to property during the outbreak. So no birds onto your premises, no birds off. Even if you're not under, in a control area, if you can avoid moving your birds around or bringing any new ones, that is going to be your best bet. You really want to keep your birds on your property. Don't bring anything else in. Biosecurity is a real critical element in helping to eradicate this disease, in addition to removing those infected birds from the environment. Making sure that you're washing and disinfecting your hands, scrubbing and disinfecting your boots before and after entering any residence or area where there may be poultry. That also includes if you're going to, say, the feed store, or any other place where people might be congregating, where they also have birds, making sure that when you get home, before you go out to your birds, you're going to want to make sure that even going in your house, you're going to want to disinfect your shoes. You're going to want to make sure that you're using hand sanitizer on your hands. Change your clothes, change your shoes then before you go out to your birds. Have a special, set of clothing that you use when you're handling them, especially when if you're in an area that's real close to some of these other premises that we knew there were infected birds. Also avoiding contact with all birds, bird fluids and feces, and then avoid sharing equipment with people, and then cleaning and disinfecting your equipment, vehicle tires before moving them between properties. If you just kind of keep in your mind that you, yourself, or your vehicles can be the ones that can pick up a virus and move it from place to place, just using common sense and thinking, what can I do to keep that from happening? Those are the kind of practices that you want to do. Both when going to somebody else's place, if you think they have birds, disinfect and spray some Lysol on your shoes and stuff before entering their place if you don't have anything set up, just to protect them as well. Effective disinfectants for B&D, bleach. You want to use relatively new bleach. You don't want to have bleach that's been sitting around for a long period of time. It can kind of lose its potency. Usually it's about 5 1/4 to 6% concentration. You use 1 part bleach to 9 parts water. So basically it's a 1/2 cup of bleach in a 32-ounce sprayer or 2 cups per gallon. You can also use undiluted Lysol multi-purpose cleaner, chlorhexidine, or Nolvasan, that's trade name, and then Vercon S as well, and that's the disinfectant that we'll use when we're going out to a premises. So the community role in eradicating the disease, you guys can really help us by, knowing the signs and looking for the disease and letting us know if you're seeing, birds that look like they're having the disease. You don't necessarily need to wait for someone else to call us. If you can let us know and say, hey, I saw these birds, they're showing these signs, you guys know about it, is there anything that you're doing about it? And then spreading the word of the disease and talking to friends, families, neighbors, and colleagues about it, talking to them about biosecurity, talking to them about the signs of the disease so that if they can look for it where they're at as well. Preventing the reintroduction of birds until the threat of the disease is gone, and then calling the sick bird hotline if you're seeing any unusual sick birds, any unusual sick or dead birds. We have the number up there at the end. I'm going to make sure that we end on a slide that has the number so you guys can copy that down. I think we have some alert flyers which I believe would have the number on it as well. And the big thing is we're in this together. We can't do this by ourselves. We can't just be responding to these calls and then euthanizing these birds over and over and then hoping that it's going to end. We need the community's help to understand biosecurity. We really need the community's help to understand that we have to keep these birds still as much as possible. So with that, we're open to taking some questions. As like I said, we have a microphone up there. You guys can line up and fire away.